Hey, I'm Will Wheaton, and I have just received a dump truck full of gold bullion to tell you to watch The Scene Snobs.
We do have another movie, like I was talking about, for Did I Fix this week. It was given to us by our patron, Tim. It is Star Trek 3, Search for Spock. I want to pull up my notes. This is a movie, when he gave this to me, I was really excited for it because it's a movie I really enjoy. I really, really like Search for Spock. I don't like it nearly as much as I like, something like Wrath of Khan or First Contact. Of course, those are pinnacles, in my opinion. Those are the movies. Those are the best. But I like it more than, I think a lot of people tend to. But it has a lot of problems. It had a lot of. It was a very experimental film, in my opinion, with a lot of things. And I want to pull up. Let me just get my notes out here while I'm doing this, because I really want to touch down on the things that, as I was going through and I was looking into them. All right, where are they? Okay, so Search for Spock, as we know, is the follow-up to Wrath of Khan. Now, Wrath of Khan, this isn't in my notes, I'm just talking about myself. So Wrath of Khan, of course, saw Kirk and the Enterprise crew come up against the augments, the genetically enhanced crew led by Khan, who they had met years and years earlier in the original series. In the episode Space Seed, they were a part of the genetically enhanced people who created the genetic wars that were happening in what would be the 90s. I think that's like kind of what they were going for in the 1990s. I think I don't know the specific year. And then that's what led to the genocide of a lot of human beings, and then led to like a World War III, and then ultimately kind of refreshed into the world of Star Trek and the utopia that we know it as. So when they run into Khan and his crew, they find out that Khan is very much not a good person. He's an evil person. He doesn't believe that the human should exist. The strong shall survive. So they try to take over Kirk's ship, try to take over that whole crew. Kirk and the crew stop them, and they leave them abandoned on a planet, which they say is habitable and you're good, except it's the wrong planet. Fast forward to Wrath of Khan, of course, find out it's the wrong planet. Now, Spock has to sacrifice himself, and so he dies. Kirk is broken up about it. It's a big loss for him. Now we get Search for Spock. Why? Because the Genesis, which is sort of the MacGuffin of this whole film, the Genesis device that can create life, which is being created by Kirk's son and Nurse Chapel. Well, no, she's not Nurse Chapel, and by this time she's Dr. Chapel, is being sought after by Khan, and Kirk is trying to stop it as well. They launch it onto the planet. It creates this life. They launch Spock's body onto it. It brings Spock back to life. I know what this means. We also know that Spock, before he left, mind melded with Bones, leaving that part of him in Bones. I realize how much all this craziness, and if you don't understand Star Trek, get with it. What's with you? Watch the movies. Come on. So by this third one, we pick up the crew is coming home after losing Spock. They've won the battle, but they have at great loss, and things are changing when they get home. The Enterprise is now being put to rest. They are being put to rest. They realize that they're all being kind of either reassigned or retired or put different places. And they're really upset about that. And they realize that Bones is sort of suffering because he has Spock stuck inside of his head. And he's starting to show a lot of traits that Spock would show. And once they talk to Sarek, Spock's father, They realize that, and they find out that the Genesis device may have actually brought Spock back to life. They desperately want to try and get back to the planet to get the body, where they know Spock's son and Lieutenant Saavik, who's played by a different actor this time, are the science crew that are on the planet doing research where they find Spock. It's very convoluted. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and I'm going to get into it. But my biggest issue with what needs to be fixed in this, it needs to be tightened up. And I will get to your comments and stuff towards the end of the episode, but it needs to be tightened up. So, like, some of the notes that I have for this, here's how you fix it. Okay, so Starfleet, first of all, is being real dicks to the Enterprise crew. This is a crew that, yes, they are an older crew, and I understand that they sort of roundabout way caused Khan to kind of happen, but they also saved the day in a big, major way. They're heroes, and they should be celebrated as such, not be put out to pasture. And that is how everyone is treating them. When they are back home, everyone is treating them poorly, to the point where they have to steal a ship, their ship, to get back. They have to fight their way out to get back. Like, nobody is willing to help them. In fact, they become almost public enemies for doing what they do. It's really kind of ridiculous. I would fix that whole aspect. There has to be something about this. There has to be a better reason to keep them from going. Now, I understand wanting to keep them from the planet, having it kind of quarantined off and everything else, but there has to be some clout, especially coming home from this battle with Khan, that you really need. And it seemed really way too difficult to get a ship in a world, in a universe where there's a lot of ships. This is mostly just space travel. Like, how can you not get a ship somewhere? But anyway, I digress. But I just didn't like how Starfleet was treating Kirk and the whole crew. It's almost like, I understand your orders, and I understand you got to follow them and things like that, but like, it was a little too much, a little too crazy. They even threw Bones into an insane asylum. Like, this man has been a doctor in Starfleet for so many years. So crazy. And I can even argue that, how they treat him in Next Gen was probably even worse, but whatever. And the science team. Okay, the science team is Kirk's kid and Saavik. You have a 2-man science team down on the Genesis planet? Seriously? A 2-man science team. One of them's not even in Starfleet. I get why he's there. I get it, because he helped build the Genesis device. But why is there a 2-man team down there? And why is there one ship surrounding it in Starfleet? Are we kidding? And a science vessel at that. So when the Klingons showed up, they're easily take them out. We need to fix this. We need to fix this. And that's the other, whatever. So for me, yeah, you shouldn't treat the Enterprise crew. The Enterprise crew thing really bugged me. Like, that really hit, especially the fact that it's the Enterprise crew and they just lost a major crew member and a major Starfleet ambassador to Vulcan. Spock was no slouch. Spock had served on that ship for he's the longest person to serve on that ship. Like, it should have been more respectful, I think. I don't know. What they were doing for the fan service was just really nuts. Okay. I like this movie for the most part, but really what you need to fix in it is you need to fix why they need to get there. I'm perfectly fine with the fact that the Genesis machine brings Spock back to life. You needed a stronger reason for the villains. Now, you're following up Khan, who is probably one of the best villains in Star Trek history. Now, I understand that you're not going to follow it up with an even better villain. It's not going to happen. It isn't going to happen. But you do have Klingons, and you could play it up. but it's just a random batch of Klingons led by Christopher Lloyd, who are just trying to steal the Genesis machine. No real reason. They just want it. Fine. Okay. But it's just a whole lot of trouble to start a fight with Starfleet when you're not doing it for your house. You're not doing it for the Empire. You're not doing it for any other reason than you just want it. And now I get that Klingons do that. But that's a hell of a lot of trouble to blow up a science vessel for Starfleet on a planet that they are working with to steal this machine. It just boggles my mind. It's a very thin storyline, and it makes the villains cheap. I think your biggest issue with this movie is that the fact that the villains are very cheap, and you need to strengthen those villains. How do you fix that? It's not that easy. You have to take a lot of steps into it. I personally would have made it more like, if you're going to make it bigger, I would have had more outside of the Federation planets trying to get in to get the Genesis machine. Have Starfleet have vessels out there, but they're almost outmanned and outgunned. They send the Enterprise right back out with a very thin crew. You got to get back out there. We need you back out there for the fight. Your son's out there. We got to protect him. That's when they discover Spock's out there as well, because it almost becomes secondary when it comes to his son. Look what Kirk sacrifices in this movie for Spock, and Spock alone. He sacrifices his son. The Klingons kill his son, and he sacrifices the Enterprise, all for Spock. And I understand why they did that, but they were trying to do that to make Spock's sacrifice mean something in this movie. I get it. And it does. It does cheapen Spock's sacrifice quite a bit. But if you want to bring him back, which I get, and I'm glad they did, because ultimately it led to to have Spock back than to not have him back. But it's okay to lose those things, but it should have been a bigger thing. It shouldn't have been what it was. So I really would have had more of an intergalactic issue. You could have had Romulans there. We've already established the Romulans exist. You don't even have to show them. They're just at a standoff. Have this standoff thing, almost like a Cuban Missile Crisis sort of situation going on at the Genesis planet, with Kirk's kid stuck there, now with a young Spock who it's time sensitive. Saavik is there. She's the only Vulcan who can kind of lead between everything. There's only a certain amount of ships standing between. The Enterprise is en route, trying to make it there with a skeleton crew who are just beaten, battered, bruised. The Klingons are really the biggest the biggest one's kind of battering down, because then you can keep Christopher Lloyd. They're the aggressors, I should say, the biggest aggressors in this whole situation. And then that's how you kind of keep them at the forefront. Like, they figure out how to get down there. That's where the fight comes in. And then like everyone else is like kind of turns away because they realize that Genesis is blowing itself up, but the Klingons refuse to give up. Spock's kid dies. Not Spock's kid. Kirk's kid dies in front of him. I think that would have been better. Like, Kirk chooses to save Spock, and his kid, like, he chooses to save Spock, and his kid jumps in the way to stop Kirk from getting killed. And that's the sacrifice. And Kirk has to watch him die. Right? I think that would have meant so much more. And now it's not even on top of that. Now his kid is dead. They're taken by the Klingons up to the bird of prey. Now Christopher Lloyd's character realizes he can't get the Genesis machine. It doesn't work. He wants the Enterprise. He's like, fuck it, I want the Enterprise. Excuse my language. Goes for the Enterprise. They go over there. Kirk is with them. They get in this big brawl on the bridge. They fight. He sets off the self-destruct mechanism. They work it out. They bring Scotty and the rest of the crew. somehow take back the bird of prey. They send the Klingons maybe over, or like maybe he calls for more Klingons. You can work that out. They kind of send over. Kirk goes back to the ship. They take that ship. They blow up the Enterprise with them on it. Now you have the bird of prey for 4. Works out. I think that would have been a better story. And now you've sacrificed the Enterprise to save Spock. You've sacrificed Kirk's kid sacrificed himself to save Kirk, while Kirk sacrificed himself to save Spock. You go to the planet, which I think that whole event was stupid, but whatever. You can do it if you want, the whole Vulcan thing. But that's just me. But that's how you fix Star Trek 3, Search for Spock. That is my way of doing it. I would love to hear what you guys think. Did I fix it? Did I not fix it? Sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think. We do this every week on the Scene Snobs Podcast. So if you guys want to check it out, sound off. And I really appreciate it. So, guys, let's move on to what we're doing next.